remember a time that I didn't paint, didn't draw, didn't escape to my room and draw, create something. I work primarily with acrylic right now. I've worked mixed media. I work in a little pastels and charcoal, and I've experimented in different areas, but it's mainly acrylic. I'm inspired by the weave, by women's work, whether it's with a needle or your hands doing pottery. It's working with the hands, and so, and particularly my paintings reflect weave, the weave. I like the grit of the weave, but I also like the imperfections that can come with the emotions and feelings that come and go during the day. So it's not a perfect weave.
I've always been incredibly moved by cloth. So old textiles, new textiles, designs on textiles. There's something about that medium. There's something about the over and under of threads that have been dyed and create patterns that triggers something in me, that speaks to me, and that has moved me to want to spend a lifetime creating pieces made that way. And I believe the cloth carries a very special frequency or vibration, perhaps more so than a drawing on a piece of paper, or in a different way, I would say. And that's what's captured me in my work, is I love to create frequencies of color and then to imbue that into fibers. And in all of the processes that we do, pieces get touched and touched and touched in the making. And I feel that when we're done with a tapestry, that it's alive. It's an entity. It's a piece of art, but it's a little closer to being a human being than it is a piece of art almost. And that's the approach that we take in this studio. Tapestry is one of the oldest and probably the most lyrical forms of cloth. It's a storytelling version of cloth. It's not a wearable form. When we think of tapestries, usually we think of old castles with massive pieces that were used as insulation and protection from the elements, as well as decoration. And classical tapestries sometimes took generations to weave.
I'm Karen Kunc. I'm a printmaker. I make colorful woodblock prints that are nature-based abstraction is probably the simplest way I can describe it. They're very colorful and are made in limited editions. I've been printmaking for over 30 years, probably longer, and this printmaking process has evolved into my visual language. It's the way I work the best, is to work with the woodblock print and all the inventions that I can do with the technique, as well as my own invented language of shapes that suggest nature and plants and landscape in a quite abstract voice. Well, I certainly think I have about 5 issues that I've always counted as my baggage. Maybe they're good, and maybe this baggage is bad. And certainly it's now, being a printmaker, that's not known as a high art form in the hierarchies, which we shouldn't believe in, but they're inevitable in the art world. I make works on paper. I teach. I'm not an independent artist out there, so I have support, but also Being a teacher and academic sometimes is devalued in our art world. I'm from Nebraska. That has plenty of baggage. And I'm a woman, and now I'm an older woman.
I've been working in clay seriously since 1970 and since 1990 as a utilitarian potter. In pottery, you can talk about the everyday pot that lives in the dish rack and what that means and how that celebrates important needs of the human race everywhere. And then there's the metaphorical pot, and that's the one that may be on an altar in a temple or a synagogue or a church or anything, a Buddhist temple. And that pot is more contemplative. And maybe the inside is strictly metaphorical. And then those pots can also live in our homes, and they feed us aesthetically in the way a painting does. I would call myself a peasant potter. And in spite of the fact that I take all these hours of work on each piece, but a peasant potter couldn't do that because they weren't going to get a price, and they had a village they had to make everything for. So, but I'm casual, and the result of my work is casual, unlike what I call a palace potter, and that would be somebody who worked at Sèvres Porcelain, for example, or Meissen. And those people, I mean, the work is flawlessly perfect. There's not any place where something goes out of a line. In my work, almost everything goes out of a line. And I like all that. I feel like it energizes the work. And lately I've been thinking I couldn't really be any other kind of maker. It's what's in me to do.
My name is Catherine Ferguson. I work in sculpture, mixed media, and I prefer to draw. I've been doing this for probably 45 years. My studio space has gotten smaller and smaller. With the iPad, I can go and I can make art anywhere. And so I've been doing a lot of designing of my large sculptures on the iPad. They're a vector drawing, so then they can be picked up by the foundry. In fact, I've enjoyed recently doing one where I haven't really even met the new man at the foundry. I sent him the drawings. He'd work on them a little bit with his program and send them back to me. We just communicated through emails. So the whole project was done long distance, you could say.
We were not traditional or typical young black girls. We were bullied when we were growing up. And we were bullied because of how we talked, how we looked. Wanda was 5'10". You know, that's a tall girl. So imagine being in 6th, 7th, 8th grade and you're one of the tallest people. You know, she didn't have the straight, pretty, beautiful hair. You know, she got a Jerry curl back in the day when those came out, and it burned off all her hair, you know? And so when you see some of her pieces and you look at the hair pieces, you kind of say, okay, I get it. If you know that story, you know, she wanted to try on different hairs and different looks. So her inspiration really came to and from the things that were happening to her in this world and how she was responding to it as a person and as a woman of color.
Textile is a universal language. In all of the cultures of the world, textile is a crucial and essential component. Therefore, if you're beginning with thread, you're halfway home. There's a level of familiarity that immediately breaks down any prejudice.
Lift on 3. Slowly. Lift back down. Slowly. On 3. Yes, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Keep it flat as possible. Right here. Exactly. Walk right down the road.
Yeah, that's good. Next one too. And the one right up, 2 up above too. I was that age. I don't think I'm gonna wear a mini skirt today, yeah. I'm thinking of all these people who worked on this. I wish they could see it.
Beautiful.
Going down over there?
Yep.
At the beginning, you work with the materials, you don't know them very well, and you try and make them do what you think you want them to do. As time goes on, you understand the way to make them do what they want to do, but your way. It's as close as we could come to what the other was. Only better.
All my work is non-objective. It has a lot to do with memory, not only personal memory, but kind of our collective memory of how we see spaces, and sometimes they're dream-related, sometimes they're experiential. They start out just as paint, and I let the paint take me to where it wants to take me. So it's this relationship I have with creating spaces and places. I don't sketch my work out, I don't plan my work. It really is about a dialogue. And I work in oil paint, so oil paint's a wonderful material because you have a luminosity to it. So you are seeing how light hits that canvas and bounces back. And so whatever color you put behind another color will affect the vibration of light. So I always see painting as kind of this wonderful alchemy. The landscape here is just magical. It's so subtle, it's minimal. For me, it has a lot of similarities to the ocean and the flatness of the horizon and the big sky. And our sky is our drama. It changes every day. And last night we had a pink sunset. And those are the things that I take in and absorb, and it helps me make the spaces that I make in my paintings. Omaha in particular is so rich with people who support. I don't care if it's visual arts or performance art, music, poetry. It's a very rich community, and it is very supportive of all art. And I'm very lucky to be here.
So many more artists are finding this a great place to work. Not to plug Omaha, but I'm really glad that we have so many, maybe in general, maybe that's the way society is going. There are more people wanting to be creative and wanting to be in all of the different arts.